So, how long have you been on a wheelchair, Jack?
So I've been a wheelchair user for 10 years now. Had my accident in December 2012.
What are some of the challenges you face as a wheelchair user in Ireland right now?
So some of the main challenges that I find is accessibility and transport. So from an accessibility point of view, I live in Dublin city centre, which is the capital of our country, but a lot of the buildings, especially in the inner city, aren't accessible. So that can be very difficult, but in terms of going out with friends or going shopping, a lot of the facilities aren't up to scratch, if you will. And an awful lot of the venues will claim to be accessible, and it's just a ticking box exercise. And that can be difficult in terms of trying to live my life and going out with friends and just being a 25-year-old young man, I suppose. And then from a transport perspective, I think we have good transport in Dublin, but if you live rurally, it can be very difficult. I've spoken to other friends of mine and other wheelchair users, and that can be a real problem in terms of them living their life. And even in Dublin, we have the DART service, that runs the length and breadth of Dublin, but when it comes down to lifts actually being operational, and having to give 24 hours notice to actually get a dart, that can be very difficult to plan your life 24 hours in advance. And then even when you do show up, it's sort of Russian roulette in terms of whether the lift will be working or not. And I think that the Department of Transport could do a lot more in terms of making it much easier for people with disabilities and wheelchair users to access transport equally.
And tell me what you're hoping to achieve with this campaign. Tell us a little bit about it.
So A Day on My Wheels is a campaign run by Spinal Injuries Ireland. It's being hosted on the 27th of September in Dublin and the 4th of October in Cork City. And the campaign is really about raising awareness about what it's like to live your life as a wheelchair user. And by no way can we ever truly give the full perspective of what it's like to have a disability. But we found that when people sit in the chairs, they have a unique experience, and it can be quite eye-opening to the major and to the minor things that wheelchair users sort of have difficulties with in terms of accessibility and getting around and just living their life on a day-to-day basis. And that's really what the campaign hopes to raise awareness with, is to get those who haven't got first-hand experience with disability or with being a wheelchair user or having a spinal cord injury, about sort of giving them that perspective and trying to, so that they can advocate also on our behalf in terms of accessibility and equality.
So in these last 10 years where you've been using a wheelchair, has anything changed for the better?
So in the 10 years that I've been a wheelchair user, I would say that recently, about a year ago, I started driving, and that has totally dramatically changed my life in terms of my independence and just being able to live my life on my basis, if that makes sense. And just not having to rely on public transport and potentially broken lifts or having to give 24 hours notice to get the dart. It's just really increased my level of independence, and just in terms of me getting out and just living my life to whatever way I feel pleased, at whatever time I want to as well, is definitely a game changer for me personally.